front pages. The one story that is really kind of taking focus this morning that we're beginning to concentrate on is about the Irish border. The Observer has it on as their splash with the Irish Commissioner warning Theresa May, either you change course or you're risking Brexit chaos. We only have 2 weeks to sort this out before we get on to discussing our future trading relationship. There's the Sunday Times. They've got a very sad story there about the Labour suicide. Very few details, so very hard to follow up. And again, you'll see Meghan on almost every front page. Meghan and Harry, that is the story that is getting bigger. That's not Meghan, that's Victoria Beckham. Sunday Telegraph front page. But again, a big EU story, a lot of Brexit coverage in the Sunday Telegraph this morning. And on the other side of the Irish story, a fairly withering comment from Nigel Dodds of the DUP saying we will not put up with there being no border at all. We'll talk about that later on. Finally, the Mail on Sunday there. It's quite a complicated story about an alleged link between Brexiteers and Russians and so forth, but you have to follow quite a lot of dots to work it out. And there again is Meghan Markle. And there on the front page of the Sunday Express, Royal Guard for Meghan. The press is already gearing up for some kind of wedding announcement very shortly. But we won't be talking much about that, I suspect. We're going to start off, I think, with the Irish border story. Robert, can you take us through the Observer front page? Well,
yes, the Observer, in its continued anti-Brexit coverage, has splashed with this idea that Ireland's EU Commissioner thinks that the only way to solve the Northern Ireland question is for Northern Ireland to remain in the single market or to remain in the customs union. Now, obviously, the DUP, they don't think that's right. They don't want to see the UK and Northern Ireland separated off. I would suggest that, firstly, EU commissioners pronouncing on UK issues, I think that's one of the reasons that people actually voted to leave. But also, it's this kind of interference back into the UK domestic scene and potentially making some significant constitutional changes to the relationship between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland is not the kind of thing that should be happening in this way. It is quite interesting that we finally got to maybe one of the bigger issues of Brexit, because...
But we didn't hear much about this from the Vote Leave campaign at the time, did we, Rob? Is it fair to say?
Well, we set out in the Vote Leave campaign, what did people didn't like about the EU? They didn't like the fact that it cost a lot of money, they didn't like the fact that it was too interfering and controlling, and they didn't like the decisions. That wasn't us saying that, that was what came from the experiences. Sure. I think this story actually proves this is one of the things that the British people didn't like. I
said earlier on there was a withering comment from Nigel Dodds, but I didn't tell you what it was, so I now will. He said, anything that separates Northern Ireland from the rest of the United Kingdom, economically or politically, is something that we could not and will not bear. So there is a very big choice now. Does Northern Ireland stay inside some kind of customs union and single market arrangement for the whole island of Ireland? Then there needs to be no border. Or if not, if they stay with the rest of the UK as we leave those things, there was going to have to be some kind of border. That is a kind of existential choice, not just for Britain but for Ireland, isn't it?
Well, I think if we're going to make a success of this deal and we're going to have a comprehensive trade deal, there are going to have to be third ways coming through these decisions. And what you have here is you have possibly one of the more interesting issues. We're getting away from the bill which has so dominated our coverage so far. And what I would say is that the public voted to take back control. They wanted these decisions to be taken. Ireland is probably playing with fire here if it's starting to up the ante, because frankly, if there is a kind of a Brexit which actually cuts the UK off, Ireland has the most to lose from it. I don't think that will happen. I think sense will prevail, but let's see.
George.
I think it's notable that three of the most articulate advocates of Brexit were newspaper columnists, weren't they? Boris Johnson, Michael Gove and Dan Hannan. And Brexit's great as a 1,000-word newspaper column, but it's what happens next. And now we're talking about what's in the next 1,000 words or 5,000 words.
George, there are too many journalists getting into politics? Is that what you're really saying?
We've got a lot to answer for. I think Winston Churchill may have been an honourable exception.
You have a tablet here and an Irish story, I think.
Well, this is the Irish side of the same story. It's the Irish Times, Dennis Staunton saying relations between Dublin and London haven't been so strained for years, and talking about the terrible sort of relationship between Leo Varadkar, the Irish Taoiseach, and Theresa May. And he quotes a former Conservative minister saying, "What the hell does your government think it's doing? Don't they know the pressure she'll come under just to walk away?" And that's the point that Rob was making, that if these talks break down on the Irish border, the danger is you end up with no deal, and then you end up with a very hard border indeed.
Really serious stuff. Ellie Mayo-Hagan, of course, we're sitting here after the budget, and as I said, the immediate aftermath of the budget was quite good for the Chancellor, but there's a lot of trouble ahead. You picked a story, I think, from the Sunday Mirror about the NHS.
Yeah, this is a story that shows that Philip Hammond gave $4 billion to the banks, but only $2.8 billion to the NHS. And the reason that I picked this out is because I think that, you know, this plays to something that a lot of people in this country feel at the moment, that we have a government that's interested in looking after the rich and not necessarily the interests of ordinary people. And I think that it also shows that the budget, you know, there's been, as you mentioned earlier, there's been a few sort of successful days of press coverage, well, better than the sort of calamitous headlines that the Tories have been getting lately anyway. But actually, it's kind of starting to unravel, and I completely agree with what you said in the introduction, which is the long-term ramifications of this budget, which is...
The OBR figures are pretty terrifying, aren't they?
Exactly, and I think that if Labour can capitalise on that, it will pay off for them electorally. That's an if, though. I don't think it's inevitable, but I do think that, you know, the IFS figures on wages stagnating for a very, very long time after the budget, missing the deficit targets, terrible growth figures. These are the things that will determine politics over the next few years, not a few shiny headlines in the immediate aftermath.
We should say these are forecasts. We don't know what's going to happen, really. George, there's a big write-through by Tim Shipman of the Sunday Times, 2 pages, lots of knives flying towards the Chancellor. But you turn over the page and he's deflecting them.
There we are. They're being absorbed in his budget box.
So what's the overall message?
I mean, Emma's right. The big thing was the forecasts, and really, I think Philip Hammond will have been relieved to have got through the day. That was the number one priority. Don't mess it all up. And he lives to fight another day. That's important in the context of Brexit, of course, because he's a leading advocate of soft Brexit. But I think from his point of view, from the Conservative government's point of view, spending money on the health service or public sector pay politically is probably the wrong choice, even if maybe for the people working those services it's the right thing, because they need to show that the economy will grow under a Conservative government. They need to hold money back. Any money they've got should be put into raising the growth potential of the economy and hoping against hope that by the time the next election comes around, the economy is picking up and people feel they've got something to lose if they vote for Jeremy Corbyn. Back
to the P word, productivity. There is no point in having the political editor of this Financial Times here without talking about productivity. And
Indeed.
we will more. Rob, apart from your vote leave years, you were also special advisor to Sir Michael Fallon, who of course now left the government. Can I just ask you a little bit, in personal terms, what it's like? So he was there, a really big figure in the government. He was on that chair all the time, and now suddenly he's on the back benches. He did come into the budget debate, very interestingly, and intervened then. Just talk us through what's happened to him.
Well, I think it's a very sudden change. You go from being the Defence Secretary, from making huge life and death decisions, working with the best and brave that Britain has to offer, and then very suddenly it disappears. Now, there has been a tendency recently for politicians to disappear off the second they've lost office. Some of them go on to be newspaper editors. But what Michael did, I think, and Sir Michael did in the budget debate, was actually to make a case firstly about an important issue, employee share ownership, and also talk about how we make Brexit a success. What I would say, and what comes through from Tim Shipman's really good write-through of the budget, is that actually it was quite a simplistic budget, quite a straightforward budget. It was low-key, it wasn't aiming to do too much, expectations had been lowered very well, and the measures were quite simple. The question which the Tories have, and I think one of the bigger issues which Conservative MPs will be looking at, is yes, we've got through the last couple of weeks now what's been a difficult period, but what is it that's going to change the narrative fundamentally? What is it that is going to make people between under the age of 50 make for the Conservatives? What is it that they can offer? Now, I think there is a lot for the Conservatives to offer, but they will have to articulate that case in the way that, say, Theresa May tried with the burning injustices speech.
Ellie May, a really interesting story in The Observer. This is Momentum with a kind of, not a loyalty oath, but they're asking would-be MPs to sign up to their values and so forth if they want Momentum support at the next election.
Yeah, the reason that I brought this up is because I know that a lot of journalists watch your show. And so I wanted to give them some friendly advice, which is just stop trying to invent problems that aren't there. 12.8 million people voted for the Labour Party at the last election. A lot of people like the Labour Party. And this kind of hysteria, I mean, you've got a Labour MP here calling it Stalinist. I mean, that's ludicrous. Stalinist, you know, we're talking about a dictator that sent people to their deaths if he didn't do what they wanted. And getting MPs to sign a document which is essentially an ethics document that everybody who joins Momentum and affiliates to it has to sign up is just a non-story. I'm sure that Progress only back MPs that that follow their
Stalin
values.
would never have allowed John Lansman to wear that beard, I think. But it is the case, is it not, the Momentum, as it were, the left of the party are making very fast advances at the moment. If you're looking at the NEC elections coming up, the top 3 candidates are on the Momentum slate. The party is continuing to move in a Corbynite direction.
Yeah, and you know, maybe it would be better to spend more column inches wondering why the so-called moderates of the Labour Party are failing and why Corbyn is doing so well. Maybe that's a more worthwhile article than this.
Let's move to another leader. Very, very important what's happening in Germany, to Europe as a whole, to Brexit, to everything else. Angela Merkel looks like she's going to try and hang on.
Indeed. I mean, her first attempt at forming a coalition government failed. And there's now a talk of either her running a minority government or restoring the grand coalition she's currently in with the German Social Democrats. And the Social Democrats are split down the middle on this. Of course, they face the same dilemma faced by the Liberal Democrats in our country back in 2010. Do they go into government and risk the possibility that they're snuffed out during the course of the coalition? But I think from a domestic point of view and from a Brexit point of view, having a strong Angela Merkel in power will be good from the point of view of the negotiations. So I think you need a strong negotiating player on the other side of the table. So
there's a good news foreign story. There's a terrible foreign affairs story we must not ignore, because it's this huge, huge attack in Egypt on Sufi Muslims by Sunni extremists. Rob.
Yeah. So this is an attack of potentially 30 gunmen. It's killed over 300 in Egypt. The gunmen were wrapped in the black flags of IS. You know, this is truly, this is murderous, violent, the kind of the death cult that is IS. You know, seeing what they're doing, they have this ideology that they want to do barbaric violence. They want to go to the extremes. I think what a lot of people need to remember is that Britain is actively involved in a campaign against IS. We're winning in Iraq, we're winning in Syria, but there's still a lot more
we should always remind ourselves that most of the extremist Islamist violence is killing other Muslims. I mean, there is a real worry now that we are heading towards a major Sunni-Shia war in the Middle East, and this may be a precursor of part of that.
Absolutely. I think what you do have here is you do have, it is violence against a Muslim minority. You know, we've seen violence against Coptic Christians. You know, IS goes for minorities. This is a death cult, and what you have to decide is what options do we have? I would suggest that the only real option for what is the evil of our time in some cases is the rightly targeted cruise missile, rather than sometimes just the Hearts and Minds campaign. I
don't think Ellie's going to go with that one, but what she is going to go with, I hope, is a very fun page on the Mail on Sunday, the Jezza Annual.
Yeah.
It's not the Beano. It looks a bit like the Beano on the front page there, but it's... Just tell us a little bit about this.
I'm really glad you said that, because I would like to respond to that, which is this is just a bit of fun, you know. It's just, I'm going to buy one for my mum. She loves Jeremy Corbyn. I hope she's watching. Hi, Mum.
She knows what she's going to get for Christmas now, though. You've spoiled it.
Yeah, and you know, I think that the thing is, well, she'll be getting more than that. Don't worry, Mum. I think that, you know, what I want to say about this whole idea that it's a cult is that Jeremy Corbyn had a very, very tough time in the media when he first became Labour leader. And I think that the sort of over the top praise that his supporters give him is a sort of reaction. It's kind of like a Millwall fan thing. You all hate us and we don't care, you know. It's like it's a reaction to the way that he's been treated in the media. And it's very tongue-in-cheek. It is a bit of fun. This is clearly just a joke. And I'm going to be putting it in some people's stockings.
I don't want to spoil it for your mum, by the way, but apparently there's a word search with the word proletariat in it. So
it's great.
Sure she'll be able to find out, yes.
Great fun. All right, thank you very much indeed for that. So to the weather, bracing, enlivening, invigorating, or as some of you might put it pathetically, cold, but bright as well. Ben Rich has more details. Ben.
I was going to call it